Good evening, Dracut. My name is Gordy Scott. Today is Wednesday, January 27th, and welcome to tonight's show. We have a jam-packed episode for you guys tonight. This is our sixth episode of the year, and we have a couple guests with us tonight. John Zimini is our normal lead host, and we have him on Zoom. John Zimini, are you with us?
I am. How are you tonight, Gordy?
Very good, very good.
Wonderful, thank you.
And also with us tonight is the ever-loving Richard Silvio from his own show. I told Richard earlier we're going to have to pay him to start coming on the show because he's so famous now.
What can you say?
But folks, I'm going to talk to these guys in just a second, but we have a great show tonight. We have a lot of topics to cover, a lot of things to go over, and don't turn the dial because you're not going to want to miss this show. When Mr. Zimini gets on, the Board of Selectmen may not be too happy, but we're going to go ahead and get into that real quick. So tonight we have a COVID report. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to have a little bit of debate about that. We've got a special report from Mr. Silvio on the effects of the pandemic on local businesses. And we're talking about the last Board of Selectmen meeting about Dracut Access TV, the Beaverbrook Farm, CPC, police chief, what he's done, the promotions he's given out. And then we get into the meat and potatoes. John's going to talk about two big special reports. So that's going to come towards the end of the show. And if we have time, we're going to talk about national politics. So having said that, let's get right over to John Zimini. John, how have you been? Can you tell our fans why you are on a Zoom call tonight?
Well, first of all, I'm in good health. I'm not feeling any illness at all. But I had been exposed to a potential exposure to COVID at a hockey game at where I coach. So as a precaution, the protocols at the school is that we sit out for 10 days. We have a test on the 8th day, and that test has to come back negative, and then we can come back on the 10th day. My 10th day is Friday, and I'm just itching to go. And it's not only me, but the entire team that I was coaching is also out because one player on the team tested positive a couple of days after the game for COVID. Now, the interesting thing is that the coaching staff has two teams. We have a cohort A and a cohort B team. So the coaching staff has been down for both teams. So at least one coach who happened to not be at that game who's been able to coach those practices in between. So we've only had a couple of practices for them, but it did cancel all the other stuff that was going on, and we're going to try to make some stuff up. But in the meantime, for peace of mind and my family's peace of mind, I went and had a test done a week ago after I had been put into quarantine, and that test came back negative, and I'm now waiting for the results of this test. And it should be negative. I feel fine.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing good. Speaking of that, we don't have a weather segment today because of Sean Kelly is feeling a little under the weather, if you will. But Richard, thanks for joining us tonight. It's always good to have a youth involved in town politics join us. So how have you been? What have you been up to the last few weeks?
You know, I've been fine. I've been working on that business report, which we're going to get into tonight. That's going to be a blast to talk about. But other than that, things have been relatively quiet. Thank you for having me. All
right, so let's get into thanks, Richard. Let's get into our first topic. And I usually have some slides I go over, tell you how many cases we have, how many deaths, how many hospitalizations. But tonight I thought we'd do a little bit different. I want to spend about 5 minutes just talking about and debating between the three of us what you guys think. And before we do that, I just want to talk specifically about my family. My wife and son both work at the hospital, so my wife got her second vaccine shot last Tuesday, and we kind of did a little experiment, John, so you might like this. So my wife had been taking vitamin D for the last few weeks before she got her first shot, and then when she got her second shot, and having done that, she didn't have any side effects from the second shot. Now, at the hospital, they said about 12 hours after, you may experience, sleepiness, some slight fever, pain in the arm, things like that. She didn't really have any of that. And then my son just got his on Monday, this past Monday, and he came home. I said, "How you feeling?" He said, "Fine." About 12 hours later, he got a fever.
Really?
He actually, yep. He had about 100 degrees. His temperature was about 100. His arm was sore. He was very tired. He went to bed early. He had to work the next day at 5 o'clock in the morning. He did go to work. He was fine. And then he came back home, and then he felt fine 24 hours later. So
they both got the different ones, right?
Yeah. So my wife had the Moderna. He had the Pfizer vaccine, but he did not take the vitamin D. So it was interesting. We did a little experiment to see if one person took the vitamin D and one didn't, what happened. So it's not empirical evidence, but from our small little test, my wife did fine, my son didn't, and he didn't take the vitamin D. So just something to note.
Well, Gordy, I've been on vitamin D for the past 6 years as a result of some surgery that I had, 7 years, because a lot of the vitamins pass through my body quickly. But I do vitamin D3, I do zinc, and I've done melatonin, and I've also done recently magnesium. So these are all the things that all the experts have been spilling out and saying that if you're on these things and you have a high volume of these vitamins within your body and you get COVID, there's a better chance of you recovering.
Right. And so we just did a small little experiment, and it happened to work for her. So that was good.
That's awesome.
So what I want to debate tonight is one thing. If you remember back when the pandemic started, there was a lot of stuff in the news about Sweden. If you remember that, do you guys remember that?
I believe so.
Sweden went to herd immunity. They didn't do any social distancing, things like that. So I wanted to see where we are now, a year later, right? So I have a few stats I want to throw out, and then I want to get your feedback. So Sweden, there's 10.2 million people that live in Sweden, okay? Right now, as of today, they have 556,000 cases, okay? And they have 11,247 deaths, okay? Massachusetts, we have 6.9 million people, so that's about 3.25 million less. We have 506,000 cases, which is so Sweden's 26% less than Massachusetts. We have 14,000 deaths. They have 11,000. Okay, the average age of death in both locations, not just Sweden or not just Massachusetts, is 80. They're both the same. The average age of hospitalization in both locations happens to be 72 years old.
Wow.
So now we have a year's worth of data. Remember, we're using the science. Everything seems very similar. And as we all know, watching the show tonight, all the things that we've done here in Massachusetts. We've had lockdowns. We've shut down our businesses. They've asked people to put curfews. We haven't been able to go out after 9 o'clock. We can't go. They've shut down restaurants. And they haven't done that stuff over in Sweden. In fact, their cafe and restaurants are open. They don't use masks. The schools are open. The bus and trains are open with no masks. What they did do, however, is they did masks for those over 70 plus. They closed all their nursing homes to external visitors. And then they found that 50% and higher is from the nursing homes, is what kind of the same thing we're here. We're about 62%.
Wow.
So having all that information, John, what are your thoughts? Should we have done the herd immunity or should we have not?
First of all, it is a serious issue. Obviously, it is a serious virus, and it does affect those in those particular areas, age areas of 80 and better, or 75 and better, or older. And anyone with multiple comorbidities have an issue also. But do I think that we overblew this whole thing by shutting down the country? I absolutely do. I think that it destroyed the economy, but I think it was a political thing behind it. And I do believe that China caused it, and I do believe that China is going to get off the hook because we have a new president, and that's subject for another day. But I do believe that we went way overboard. And in Massachusetts, we continue to go overboard. Charlie Baker has done a horrible job on the economy of Massachusetts, and it's going to show for many, many years after he's gone that we won't be recovering, as will the country won't be recovering from this. The economy may recover because, it's the world reset of the world economy that they're really out for. Not so much of your economy, but it's their economy that they're out for. And that's a shame because it's going to cost us affect me as an elderly person that's, retired. It'll affect me in prices in the stores and what have you, but I don't think it's going to affect me financially, but it's going to affect my kids. They just don't know it yet.
All right, thanks, John. Richard, if you could go back in time and you were a politician and you were able to make the choices, what choice, based on what I told you, what choices?
Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden.
Honestly, I think I would have followed Sweden's path and kept things open. If you look back, at California, they're having some of the biggest outbreaks right now, and they have some of the heaviest restrictions going on, and people are following them over there, yet they're still getting the virus. So obviously, these lockdowns and masking and whatnot are not working. So I would have definitely kept things the way with Sweden and not shut down the economy, not do any of this ridiculous stuff. It's absurd.
I totally agree. And if you looked at the data back, and we were on a previous show, John, myself, were on a previous show, and this is the stuff I was preaching then, and I took a lot of negative feedback from the internet, the social media community about it. But really, those people that are in critical conditions, people that are elderly, people that have the comorbidities, as John spoke of, those are the people that should be protecting themselves. The healthy people, young people, open the schools. They should be back in school. And we're not going to get into it now because we have a special report I want to get to because we have a limited amount of time and a lot of stuff to do. But
you have a little bit of pushback on Facebook. Your wife says it's opposite. She had Pfizer and Kyle had
Okay,
Moderna.
sorry.
They're two different things. And we also have, hi, Colin Martin, how are you? And we've also got Kevin Telly, and he asks us, where's Phil tonight? So where is Phil tonight?
I'm not sure. I heard he's not feeling too well, so he's not here as well. So I don't know if COVID's going around. I'm not sure what it is, but
no, I don't think it's related to COVID. But if Phil is, I'm sure Phil's watching, because if you're a junkie for this stuff, you're not sitting back and you're not, not watching. So, and I know Phil, he's probably wants to relax. He's had a rough week, he said, and he needed a night off because he's had so many meetings and stuff for business. But if Phil wants to call in, he's more than welcome. Or if he wants to Zoom in, just text me, Phil, and I'll give you the Zoom password and pass number, and you can come on in.
All right. So, John, just one last thing I want to, before we get to Richard's special report. It's just pretty funny that all of a sudden across the United States now they've released, all of a sudden all the lockdowns are lifted. Everything's going to be fine now. Just found that interesting.
Well, Gordy, can I set up the intro for
Sure,
Silvio?
Absolutely.
Because seeing as I'm the guy who asked him to do it. So, folks, Richard Silvio is our crack field reporter. He goes out and he gets stories and he does human interest things for us. And he's going to get into some controversial stuff, I'm sure, as he goes along, because he's getting the bug for this, right? So what I did was I asked him, I said, Richard, we need a story for 2 weeks from now, which I told him a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I wanted you to, can you go out and search a couple of businesses to tell us what the effects of COVID has had on their businesses? What kind of restrictions? What do they have to do to retrofit and what have you? So, Richard, did I have any influence on you at all of what businesses you go to?
No, John, not at all. That was actually completely up to me who I wanted to contact. You did help me out with Primos, when I couldn't get in contact with them. But other than that, no, it was completely up to me. I decided where I wanted to go.
Exactly. So, and I didn't tell you what kind of questions to ask or anything like that.
Not at all.
Correct? Now, what about when you had a problem with one person that somehow you got disconnected from the phone and you asked me to intervene, it's a person I know, and I called them up and they responded, right?
Absolutely. This is completely my segment, and I do what I want to do with it, and I have no interference whatsoever.
Okay. So, Gordy, set it up and let's get it going.
All right. So we have a special report on the effects of the pandemic on local businesses. Nate, if you can roll it, please.
What's happening, Dracut? My name is Richard Silvio, field reporter for DATV's latest and greatest new talk show, What's Happening, Dracut? I'm currently joined by the owner and proprietor of Dracut House of Pizza. Being in business so long, it must have came as a surprise to you when COVID first hit. How were you guys affected when that first mandatory shutdown happened?
It was tough, like it was on everybody, just dealing with, the masks and getting the store, totally reset up with all the plexiglass and all the safety precautions and training our employees and, just the whole, it just turned our world upside down. But yeah, we were taking on delivery for a long time. We kind of repurposed the dining room to facilitate that, to give people more space and to, change our sanitizing procedures and all that stuff, so.
Okay, so you mentioned the plexiglass and precautions. What type of stuff are you guys doing here to make sure you mitigate the spread of COVID?
So, as you saw when you walked in, we have plexiglass separating all our booths. We have plexiglass in front of our counters, our sanitization protocols. Every certain amount of minutes, we sanitize all the contact surfaces of people coming in and out. We have contactless payments, things like that, just so we can minimize the contact between the customer. We've had a lot of delivery services, so people don't have to leave their house if they don't feel safe, and just trying to make it as safe and get the people fed as best we can.
So do you have anything else that you'd like to say to the people of Dracut?
We love you guys. We're here to support Dracut. We recently did our Thanksgiving food drive. Even though we couldn't have a big event like we usually do every year because of the COVID protocols, we still we managed to feed over 2,000 families. Wow! So we love the town of Dracut. We're here for you guys. We've expanded all these delivery services. To help accommodate people that don't feel safe leaving the house and. We're just doing the best we can.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a very informative conversation. I'm Richard Silvio, and this has been What's Happening Dracut. I'm currently joined by one of the owners and proprietors of Primo's Pizza, located here in Dracut. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Georgiana Kutsaronis. How are you?
I'm doing very fine, Georgiana. It's great to be here with you. So tell me a little bit about Primo's. It's been here for quite a while, hasn't it?
We've been in business for 23 years. This fall actually makes 24 years.
Really, 24 years. So, being open for so long, it must have came to a shock to you when COVID-19 first hit. Tell me, were you forced to shut down at all?
No, we were not forced to shut down, although we did fear it in the beginning. We went from a very bustling business. As soon as COVID got announced on the television through Massachusetts News that business would be closing, we went from bustling to very, very slow for the first couple of weeks. Yep.
So I take it that your takeout business kind of picked up during that time.
Oh, considerably.
Yes.
Yeah.
So have things been getting back to normal with people coming in and out? Have things been more relaxed?
The takeout business and the delivery business are both very strong. They have been. That's what sustained us all along. The dining room is slowly coming back to normal, even with the limitations they have in place, the restrictions.
So, speaking of limitations and precautions and whatnot, what type of precautions are you guys taking here to ensure the safety and to mitigate the risk of COVID?
So we have, the obvious, like the rest of the world. We're wearing our masks, we're wearing our gloves. We have plexiglass shields put up at the registers. We have dividers between the booths and the equipment. We sanitize everything regularly. We have a professional cleaning company that comes in every night and sanitizes.
Do you fear another COVID shutdown in Massachusetts?
No, I don't.
No, you don't think that businesses are going to have to close down again, especially a restaurant like this?
Well, I don't personally feel it for my business because we fortunately were deemed as being necessary, essential.
Do you feel like a personal obligation to keep running as best as you can to provide that food?
I do feel an obligation. I'll tell you why. It was a very eye-opening experience. We've been in business for a long time.
Right.
I've seen so many things, but I've never seen, this was unprecedented.
Right.
I've had a lot of elderly seniors who order food from us every single day, and this was the first time I would have them call me up. This was in April when COVID was new to everyone, and they were emptying the shelves at the supermarket, and my seniors were calling and they were in a state of panic. You're not going to close, are you? Because we can't get to the market. We're too afraid to go to the market, and we rely on you to deliver us food every single day. So, yeah, I do almost feel an obligation. I've got people that come in regularly every single day, and many of them are seniors. They don't want to go to the market, so this is what they feel is their safest means of getting supply for their food.
And I think that's a wonderful thing that local businesses like yourself can step up and really, fill in the void that elderly people feel not being able to, go to the supermarket or not feeling safe enough to go to the supermarket.
Yeah.
Wrapping it up here, do you have anything that you'd like to say to the people of Dracut?
Oh, very much. I would like very much to thank my community. You guys have been wonderful. I'm so grateful for my customers that have come in. Many of you were very concerned about our business, how were we doing when COVID first hit, and your concern and your support, it means so much to my husband and I, my family, to my employees. This community has been wonderful, and we're truly, truly grateful. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Richard Silvio. This has been Georgiana with her very heartfelt message to the people of Dracut. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Silvio, field reporter for What's Happening Dracut. I'm currently joined by one of the co-owners and proprietors of CardSmart, located here in Dracut. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Reggie Leroux, and my wife, Saya, who's camera shy, and I own the business. Been here, I believe, something like 14 years, and been in business for going on 30 years.
30 years, really? Wow. Yeah. What's your secret for success?
Not dying.
Not. Being in business so long, it must have came to a shock to you when COVID-19 first hit. What was that like for the first wave?
Oh, it did, especially, where we're a little more mature.
Yeah.
It's, it's different. I mean, it's not something we've done, had to ever do in our life, and it was a shock. We were closed for right early on in April. We were into May. We were closed 12 weeks.
Really?
We're really grateful for the town. I mean,
right.
it sounds self-serving, but the townspeople out here have been super loyal. They would rather come to us locally
right.
than go to any of the bigger places. And we're off, a percentage obviously on our business, but it's. I think we've done a lot better than most
right.
that are in our position because, as I said, the townspeople are loyal and they seem to like us. But we try to have a good time and play up good customer service and so forth. And we try to have, a good range of products that you don't
right.
see in every corner store. So it's good that way.
So being reopened with COVID-19, what are some of the precautions you guys are taking to try to mitigate the risk?
Well, we're doing the, following the state and the local guidelines. I mean, we're obviously requiring masks, and
right.
We've got sanitizers, and we've got the hand sanitizers, and then we spray willy-nilly
right.
during the day around the store. And we're kind of militant about
right.
making sure the one of the big things is have your nose covered too.
Right. With business being kind of a little more difficult to conduct normally, and having spraying and making sure people have the masks over their nose, do you think there's more of a strain on employees to try to make sure that they're doing all that along with their ordinary duties?
Oh yeah, a little bit. I mean, our day manager Colleen is. Most of it falls on her shoulders, so she's the one that has to be enforcer and so forth. And but she's been good about it. And like I say, I can't say it enough times. The customers have been very supportive and very cooperative.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to say to the people of Dracut?
I can say thank you very much for sticking with us and coming in. We really appreciate it. And just keep on trucking. The end is in sight.
The end is in sight. Well, our next guest refused to appear on video, but agreed to answer a series of questions regarding his business and the challenges they faced throughout the COVID crisis. He is a man who is very well known in the town of Dracut, and he operates one of the most beloved companies we have in town, Warren Shaw of Shaw Farms. When we asked Mr. Shaw how he felt about the first wave of COVID-19, he responded that he felt the virus was a simple novelty, one that would last no more than 3 weeks. He was sorely mistaken, however, when the virus lingered on, forcing him to install multiple new safety features to mitigate the risk of customers contracting COVID-19. Some of these policies included the addition of social distancing and masks, along with plexiglass barriers to keep a safe distance between customers and staff. Mr. Shaw, when asked if he felt his employees were strained to fulfill both their regular and COVID duties, he said that he did not feel his workers were under additional pressure. He stated that they worked as a team to serve the people of Dracut. He also said that his employees had the duty to stay safe and follow guidelines outside of work as well. He stated that he has the highest regards for his managers and workers who have reported any symptoms they or loved ones might have had. When questioned on the state of his business, Mr. Shaw said that business soared 200% within the first 3 months of the virus. He then mentioned that at one time he had over 300 people on a waiting list for home milk delivery. He also said that almost a year into the coronavirus, milk delivery remains at twice the level of customers than he previously had, a figure that he feels will remain post-COVID. Mr. Shaw later mentioned that when faced with an egg shortage, he was able to source the product from other local farms, thus allowing them to fulfill their orders. Mr. Shaw hopes that COVID will soon pass and hopes that residents continue to shop local once COVID is over. This has been an on-the-spot report with Richard Silvio.
Wow. Richard, that was a great report. Great report. I just find it interesting that, the businesses are doing, wouldn't think they were doing as well as some of them talked about, especially Shaw Farm seems to be doing extraordinary.
Yeah, that blew me away. I did not expect that at all. I didn't realize that a lot of their business was the home delivery opposed to, the ice cream stand. So that really did blow me away.
Wow. John, your thoughts on that report? Is John still with us? We might have lost John.
Might have lost John. Oh, John.
John, are you still with us?
I think John might be pretty occupied.
First I got to unmute myself.
There we go.
I was actually watching it because I can't see it when I'm on Zoom. I was watching it on the computer.
Were you surprised about
you're
that?
You're getting some great comments online about your piece there, Richard. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Your co-host made comments about how good you are, but I told him he was biased.
Were you surprised?
I'm going to take credit.
Were you surprised, John, at that report?
For bringing Richard in with us.
Were you surprised, John? Were you surprised?
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh. Were you surprised, John, at how well?
That's why. How about that? Go ahead.
Were you surprised at how well the companies are doing here in Dracut? That surprised me. Actually,
I'm not, because the big box stores were more of a threat for people to go into, and you had to wait in lines and things of that nature. And some of the stores around Dracut itself, being smaller, would have less people going in, but it would obviously show an increase in their services. Primo's, by the way, as well as Dracut House of Pizza, are great places to eat at, but they're also great community companies, as well as all of the companies or all of the interviewees that Richard had. But I think that, the fact that people were emphasizing more local buys is an important thing for the towns like Dracut. I had a question for Richard, because when we discussed this, and as he was going through his process, he obviously got some pushback from Mr. Shaw. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah, when I first approached Mr. Shaw about this, he was not too faint on having an interview done. In fact, there were some mild barriers set up that I had to get through in order to obtain the interview. One of them being not wanting to, be filmed or have his face on the program. But, I got past that. Other than that, he was pretty cooperative. We got it done. And I think, it was nice that we can put differences aside and come together and make a report, for the town.
That's great.
Well, I'm sure he probably thought that if we knew you were doing that interview, that we might try to stop it. But we don't do that here. We don't do that stuff here.
I suppose once I was vetted by him, and was given the okay, we had a wonderful time. We did.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But we're looking forward to your next piece, and we want to know what we're gonna be looking at. Do you have any ideas?
So it's still in the works, but I'll give you some of the basics. So, similar to what I did just now with the businesses, I was hoping to go into the high school and, do somewhat of the same thing, ask a few teachers how they feel, about teaching with COVID and some of the restrictions in place. But we're waiting to get word back from the superintendent, which hopefully will happen this week, and then we'll have more information on that.
Great.
Great.
We can't wait, Richard.
Absolutely, it'll be a blast.
Great report. All right, so we're on to our next segment, John. So the Board of Selectmen's meeting that occurred last evening, there was a few hot topics I want to touch upon. The first one of those being, since you're on the Board of Directors, I don't know how much you can get into this, but as everyone knows, the Board of Selectmen seems to have a little bit of a disagreement with Dracut Access and how things are being run down here. So they talked about that, and the lawyer, William Solomon, actually got on and spoke to the Board of Selectmen. Your thoughts, John, on that?
Well, I'm obviously going to respond to your question relative to what everybody else knows if you watch that meeting, that the board at Dracut Access Television has been attacked by one particular member and sometimes two particular members because they don't understand what DATV is all about. They don't want to know what DATV is all about. They think that there's a pot of gold there and that they can use that pot of gold for other things within the municipality. And that's pretty clear, as spelled out by the lawyers last night, that can't happen. It's similar to an enterprise fund of the sewer department. You can't take sewer money and put it into
the police,
the senior center.
Right.
You can't take sewer money and put it in the library. Just like you can't take money that's collected from ratepayers of Comcast for the operation of a PEG station. You can't take those funds and give them to any other department within the town. Now, I know they kind of dropped a thing there last night saying they want to give it to schools. They want to give some of it to schools to produce a program within the schools. Can't do that. You just can't do it. And they're probably going to push back and try to use that it's the law. Just like we recognized a year ago or more, while Jim Duggan was here, that we might not be complying with the law as a town, not so much as us, but as a town, they may not be within the law on how this money comes to Dracut Access Television. So how it comes to Dracut Access Television currently is, in the contract, it spells out that the money comes directly to the pay. But within the law that had been changed, it says that the money has to go through in a pass-through through the town or through the cities. Now, people could say, well, that's going to give them control. No, because we're still a private nonprofit, and we have rules to obey, and we set the bylaws up, and we administer the whole operation down at DATV. We do set the policies. We do not manage the operation at DATV. So the long and the short of it is, we went to them and said to them, we probably should be doing it this way, and they're going to set up an enterprise fund. Of course, they see a pot of gold, and that's just not going to happen.
And now the enterprise fund they're talking about setting up needs to go in front of town meeting on a warrant article, so the town approves that. Is that correct?
Correct. And what it is, that's correct. And basically what it is, it's whatever monies, according to the contract, that comes in from the subscriber, and in this case, it's about 4% of whatever your bill is, and that 4% gets passed into, in the form of a check, goes to quarterly to us directly. This time it'll go into an enterprise fund, and at the end of the year, that enterprise fund money will be sent over to DATV for the operation of the PEG station and everything, equipment and whatever else we do down there. But the bottom line is, they have no control or say as to where the money goes or what it does. It's a pass-through. That's simply all it is. So town meeting will vote on, like it does everything else, it'll vote on what the bottom line is that will be passed through as an estimate of what the revenues will be for that given year.
John, can I make a prediction for you?
Sure.
So Mr. Derocco...
Probably a prediction I've already made, but go ahead.
Mr. Derocco was very concerned. He said how the taxpayer, he's concerned about how much the taxpayers are paying. If and when this all happens and they think they're going to get this money for the school, I got a feeling they're going to raise that 4% to maybe 5% or 6% or whatever the maximum is to get more money for the town.
The maximum is 5%, and that has to be negotiated. And that contract has another 8 years on it. And again, they can't use it for anything else. You can't use it for snow plowing. You can't use it for police. You can't use it for fire. You can't use it for teachers. You can't use it for school interests. We can't put a playground in with it. You can't do any of that. And soon they're going to find that out, just like they can't just raid the water department. The water department's an enterprise fund. And I mean, Derocco's obviously got political revenge on the mind, which we'll get into. And I hope we get a chance to get into it because we're running. Time is fleeting here.
Real quick, I want to talk about the police chief report. There are been two promotions. John Goslin was promoted to lieutenant and Tyler Dixon to sergeant. Your thoughts on that?
Two great individuals. Richard, have you had any interactions with the police before?
Yeah, I feel like I feel like it's a loaded question, John, because you know for a fact that because of the show and some of the things that I've done locally politically, yes, I have been involved with the police, but they're a wonderful bunch of people. Wonderful.
Nothing but the best, correct?
Nothing but the best.
You know something. The good thing is, and Tammy Dristeleris and George Dristeleris are probably watching, and they'll attest to this. A good lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer, but a good lawyer or an advocate for lawyering would never ask a question they don't have a good idea of what the answers are going to be. But yes, John Goslin and Tyler Dixon are great guys, as they're great appointments, great promotions, well-deserved. Goslin comes from a Dracut family that's been around for a long time. And, of course, they'll do good work for us. They'll be good.
All right, lightning round BOS, John. 10,100 for purchase of 401 Richardson for the CPC. Your thoughts?
Total joke. It's landlocked land. Nobody can get onto it. It's, as one member of the CPC who voted against it describes it, I believe they voted against it, who describes it as being nothing but swampland and forest. You can't even traverse it without having a problem. So that's a joke. And now that is a money grab. And it's unfortunately that the town is being sucked into. It's similar, if you don't know this already, Gordy and Richard, if on Bridge Street, if you look across from Bridge Street, there's a beautiful swamp area where you can see a lot of geese and everything on it. Yep. Do you know that the property of which that waterway is owned by the town of Dracut?
Really?
And you know who bought it? Who was spearheading the purchase of that? A former selectman who no longer lives here. I'm not even going to bother mentioning his name. But we bought that property. Can you believe that? It's just let's put money in a pocket of a friend.
Rich, do you have any thoughts on that?
Knowing the town, they're probably going to buy it and turn it into a nature reserve. Maybe charge $10 that people look at the geese all day. But I don't know. From what I'm hearing right now, it sounds like a big waste of money, but doesn't surprise me at all.
And the last one from the Board of Selectmen meeting, John, I wanted to get your feedback on, was the Beaverbrook Farm. There's a committee that got together, put a plan together, gave it to the selectmen. There's a few things in there I was like shaking my head at. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Listen, I think if you've been up to Beaverbrook Farm, it's a great asset for the community. And if it's done right, and look at Ellis Neophytistus, who's the head of that committee, is a great guy, does great work. He's on a lot of different committees within the town. I don't know him personally. I just know him through politics and through the town. But if he's recommending things to be done up there, then I'm all in favor of doing it, as long as it doesn't cost the taxpayers any further dollars. Now, I question some of the stuff that they're talking about, and you got a little pushback from Joe Derocco last night. Very subtle, very easy. But I will say that I agree with Joe on this. He mentioned an amphitheater that was going to be close to the condos over there. And those condos will complain if there's activities there. The residents of those condos will be affected by any kind of activity if certain things go on late at night or whatever. So why would they put the amphitheater there? And I kind of agree with them. Why not put it on the other side, somewhere where it wouldn't affect any neighborhoods? But again, I don't think it's something that's going to be a no a deal breaker for them, but I think it's something that'll be worked out in the future.
The big thing I took away from that, John, was the water. There's a watershed there currently, and they want to turn that possibly into a cell tower. So I don't know. I think one of the selectmen asked, is that zoned for that? And how would that work if we, because normally if Verizon, for example, came in and put up a cell tower, they would pay the town, a lease for that property. And where would that lease money go? Richard, any thought on that? I just don't see that. That's not a good place for a cell tower.
Quite honestly, I want to know: do we need another cell tower in Dracut in the first place? I haven't really heard many cries for one. I know personally, my cell phone's been running fine. I'm sure everybody else's has. So I really don't know what the end goal is here. It seems really fishy to me.
I don't know if it's a money grab or just an idea thrown out there against the wind. I don't know. I just don't know how that would work. We'll see what happens with that. We'll keep an eye on that. But I just shook my head on that one. So,
hey, can I interrupt you for a minute? We've got a little bit of a back and forth going on our page.
Okay.
Oh boy.
With Joe Bigos, who is talking about my picture of the president sitting here.
Oh yes. President. How could we not mention that?
My president.
That signed picture. The signed
photograph.
It's an autographed picture by the president. So Joe Bigos put out there something about that he liked the picture, right? Mm-hmm. He always tunes into the show. I'm trying to see where it says, and he's John Curtis, who is a political liberal neophyte who comments on all things Trump in a negative way. He never has to go because he hates Trump so much. He's got so much pent up hate within him for Donald Trump. And never mind the policies that are now being destroyed by his president, Joe Biden. He's going back and forth with Richard about it, and he said, and John is trying to say that this is the worst president since Richard Nixon.
Oh, brother.
And whatever. I mean, it's all BS on John's part. John really doesn't know what he's talking about. Who knows? I don't know enough about John Curtis to even make a comment about him, but I know that just by his comments on Facebook and his pushback is that he's a very liberal guy and doesn't care that, Gordy, you can get inside the pocket of Richard and take whatever money he's got in his pocket out, because you know what? You can. It's America.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John, I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm sliding up to the front of my seat. I'm on the edge of my seat, and I want to know what's going on with your special report on the investigation and allegations of wrongdoing in the town.
Well, we've got a couple of things going on, and I'm going to be very quickly with this because I'm not at liberty to release too much information on it. But we have one particular report that's coming out of a particular department within the town that says that there are allegations flying all over the place of wrongdoing, and it's something to do with. I really can't get into it too much. I'm trying to find my notes on that one. Hold on a minute. The town has hired a law firm, not a law firm locally, and not a law firm within the region, but a law firm that has been engaged to conduct an investigation into alleged wrongdoings. And I just can't reveal much more than that at this point. But it's if and when it comes out, and I'm sure it will, because once the investigation gets rolling and really gets rolling, you know stuff leaks. So people will start talking. And we'll have more on that as we go forward. But there is another issue that we talked about earlier today. And that issue is the shameful, disgraceful treatment of a veteran, a man in Dracut, a young man in Dracut that sacrificed his family, sacrificed his livelihood, and almost sacrificed his life by going overseas to fight against terrorism. And I'm speaking about Justin George. We all remember the protest that was outside of Town Hall because of the treatment he got, because he proposed something at town meeting and the town manager didn't like it, and members of the Board of Selectmen didn't like what he did, and so they started a whole political thing against him, political revenge. Again, it's another piece of the thread that connects Joe Derocco to all the politics in Dracut, all the politics here and all the political revenge in this town. The bottom line is that Justin George is being mistreated again, and he was trying to move on from his life. By the way, he did get a very, very favorable ruling from a state agency on his case of harassment down at the fire department. So that case is now moving into the civil courts where he's got a lawsuit against the town. And that's a very big lawsuit, folks. And there's going to be a lot of people in line for that one. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to go down on that one. And you know who's going to pay the bottom line is you and I and the taxpayers. And
but I'm willing to pay it for him, John.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Well, you saw the impassioned speech he had. I'm trying to get him on with us, and I know he's made indications to others that he'd like to come on at some point. But you know, at this point in time, all I can get out of Justin is no comment. So I'm getting all my information from sources, and the sources are pretty strong. So what Justin did in a nutshell, and I'm going to get into it more on future shows. What Justin did was he tried to go and find another job in the fire department, in the fire service. And he went to Natick, and he tried to get into Natick. And guess what? Now, you can say it might be the hater Joe Derocco, and I'm not saying it is, but it might be. It might be the chief of the fire department. It might be, but I'm not saying it is. But you know how these things are, how things in the circles go, that they drop little hints. Well, he's a cancer, or he's no good, or you shouldn't hire him. He wanted to get a transfer, and he was right on the doorstep of getting that transfer, and it got pulled out from under him because somebody obviously whispered in somebody's ear in Natick. And it could also, and I will qualify this, it could also be a Google search, because you know you can Google search things. Google search your name, Gordy. I'm sure they're going to come up with smiley faces.
Right.
You're going to Google You're going to Google search Richard's name, and Richard's going to come up with all kinds of stuff about protests.
Probably.
I got to throw a bomb at him once in a while. But the poor guy and his family has gone through hell, and this is a guy who put his life on the line for America and for being able to speak out with free speech. And what happened? He's submarined. He's stuck now. He's stuck here in Dracut. And unfortunately, you know, eventually the political revenge in this town is so toxic, is so revengeful. As you can see what Joe Derocco's done with DATV. He keeps talking about the management at DATV. And I keep saying, well, what's wrong with Gary Muse and Ron Zimmerman? What's wrong with the workers down at DATV? We want to know, because as a board member, I'll try to fix it. But it's not the management, because it's the board members. It's John Zimini. It's Phil Thibault. It's Tammy Dristolaris.
He mentioned your name,
he have the nerve to challenge them. Sorry, Gordy?
He mentioned your name again at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. He called you out.
Did he last night?
Yes.
When was that? Because when I was on, he didn't mention it.
When they were talking about the Dracut Access TV, well, down there, Zimini and all those guys.
Well, I didn't. Maybe I missed that.
Or it might have been the week before. I might be mistaken. It might be from the.
The week before. I didn't. Yeah. I listened. I painfully watched that last night, and of course, the DATV thing was at the end of the meeting, and the middle of the meeting, and I shut it off after that. But the bottom line was I had to sit there and listen to this. It's such a sad affair. Tony Achinsky, and this might be, a kiss of death to Tony, as far as me saying anything nice about Tony. And I mean, Heather's doing a decent job too. But I don't know where the others are coming from. They haven't taken the time to find out what Dracut Access Television is all about, I guess, because they don't know. But what they're being led by is this guy, Joe Derocco, who has 15 years of doing nothing. But political favors and revenge. He takes care of his friends. He tries to do things for his friends, and then he goes ahead and he buries anybody that stands in his way. Some of the stuff that he's done, he has no accomplishments, by the way. None. I want the citizens of Dracut to ask themselves, is your public safety any better than it was 15 years ago when Joe Derocco took over? The answer to that question is no, because Joe Derocco has never done anything to try to make those agencies better. He's been on the Public Safety Committee for 15 years, and the departments are less bodies in them today than when he took office. Now, he's going to say it's attrition, it's this, it's that. I don't care. It's bunk. When I got on that board, I served 9 years on that board. When I got on that board after Joe, I proposed the increase of 6 members for each one of those boards, along with Bobby Cox. We both proposed it. That passed. We increased the membership of that board our first year on. Our first year on that board, we increased it. And increased the members of both public safety departments by 6 people. Now, granted, you have to keep up with that. You have to keep pushing it. And Joe Derocco has done nothing to do that. Nothing. He's a guy that sits on the Public Safety Committee. He hasn't done a thing for that. What did he do? He tried to stop Dylan McInnesby Field. We beat him on that. He tried to jam down the throats of the town. The White Elephant piece of property up on Mammoth Road, by the way, which 2 doors down from him. 2 doors down from him. You think it would have something to do ethics with the property that he owns? Or he may not own it anymore because there's nobody could find any tax rolls where he comes up on. But he wanted to sell that White Elephant to the town and take it over, and that was a disaster, building inspection disaster. And what else did he do? Oh, he gave the then manager who was planning on retiring, he went in and negotiated on his own an 18-month extension to his contract at a whopping 27% pay raise for Dennis Pindak. Look, Dennis Pindak's a great guy, did a great job here, held the town together doing things, but he never advanced the town either economically or in either one of those departments, including the school department. But he took care of Dennis Pindak. He made sure Dennis had a great handshake as he went out the door, increasing his bottom line salary by 27% and giving him the highest kind of a handshake he can get for retirement for the rest of his life as he went out the door, plus all his back sick time, all his back vacation time. What else? I'm going through this real quick because I know we're going to run out of time. All he does is protect his friends. For instance, he protects the friends down at the fire department, the police chief, the fire chief, rather. There's a report, folks. I don't know if you've heard about this report. It's an MRI report. I got it here, right? And I don't think the selectmen ever reviewed it. Well, we are going to do a series of reviews on this report, and we're going to expose some of the stuff that's in this report that Joe Derocco and others on that board, some of the members are not current members, but Joe Derocco and others that were on that board never tried. One did try to do something about it, but nothing happened because that person wasn't strong enough to beat the godfather of all Dracut politics, Joe Derocco. We're going to expose some of the things that are in this report, and it's shocking. Shocking. Some of the comments. They're going to say that it's despicable because that MRI report used anonymous sources. Really? Anonymous sources. You know why you want to know who those anonymous sources are? Because you want to bury them. That's what you want to do. The political forces in town want to bury the anonymous sources. Well, if it's an anonymous source, how about saying the Me Too type of situation in our fire department? How about saying, let's look into it. Let's have an investigation into it. Let's interview the department under the guise of protecting them under the Whistleblower Act and let them speak their piece of what's going on or what has gone down in that department. Some of the atrocities that were perpetrated on the men and women that serve our fire department. Some of the things that are in this report are absolutely scathing and shocking. But Joe Derocco, it's okay because he's the head of he's the public safety guy in town. He's the public safety guy in town. But it's still a disaster down there. Can anybody name me one thing that Joe Derocco's done?
Yeah, I can name one thing that I'll never forget.
What did he do?
When our last town manager, if you remember, they have to go through a yearly process, as you're well aware of, John.
Yeah.
And they get reviewed by each of the selectmen, and they get a grade report card. Well, so I remember this at the selectmen's meeting. Each selectman did probably spent a few hours doing his review, and then it comes to Joe Derocco. Joe, what's your grade? 2. I just went down the list and gave him a 2. And he didn't have any explanation. I guess he's just too lazy to actually do his job. And I won't forget that, because that's when Jim Duggan, back in the day, after his first year, people within the town thought he was doing a pretty good job running economic development. We know what happened to him in the end. But at the time, I think his average score was 4, 4.5, something like that. But Joe just gave him a 2 all the way down, because he just couldn't be bothered by doing the review, which is his job.
Joe Derocco's claim to fame, and on his in his political obituary, or in his obituary at some point, it will say that Joe Derocco perpetuated the biggest fraud on the town of Dracut when he gave the raise, which I voted against, by the way, to Dennis Peendak. Never voted for a pay raise, by the way, for a manager that was more than what we were willing to give to the town employees. But Joe Derocco didn't care about that, because he took care of his friends. But he will be forever remembered as the guy who orchestrated the current town manager's new job, because the process that was put in place had a committee appointed by the board to search out the members, to search out a new town manager to replace Duggan, who, by the way, Joe Derocco orchestrated the demise of Jim Duggan. He started that on the day that Jim Duggan got appointed. On the day that he got appointed, he didn't like him, and he was starting his baloney with him way back then. So it was just a matter of time before he got him. And Jim lasted maybe 5 or 6 years. But the bottom line is, Joe Derocco single-handedly submarined the non-political, non-revengeful committee that was put together to search out a new manager. And the current manager, who was a wonderful lady, a wonderful young lady, she wasn't a finalist. But because she wasn't a finalist, Joe Derocco did everything he could to submarine that process. And he eventually got Jesse Forcier, who's a weak politician at best. He succumbed to Joe Derocco's, pressure. And unfortunately, new political newcomers came in, and then you ended up having a manager that wasn't really the choice of the committee, that was a diverse committee across the board. And that's just one thing, but he's going to be remembered for that. And he has some political allies that were with him for years that to this day are not talking to him or are very cold with him because of that, because they orchestrated that kind of a scam that other people in town, for instance, Warren Shaw, was trying to stop. He was trying to stop that kind of stuff. So it's another thing, something that I agree with Warren Shaw on. That process was absolutely submarined by Joe Derocco. The other thing that Joe Derocco did was he cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars in crazy lawsuits throughout the years. He also cost us he cost us money for the old, you'll know this, Gordy, the old town hall, annex. Spent $100,000 on a report that came back and said that the building's perfectly fine.
We're going to check on that later, but we're out of time, John. Can you believe that went so fast?
Wow.
Well, Richard, I want to thank you for coming. A great report. We're looking forward to your next one. John, thanks. Stay safe at home. And until 2 weeks from now, remember, when it's Wednesday and it's 7, it's What's Happening Dracut. Good night, Dracut.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.